Hello and welcome. My name is Lucas Bierman, and this is my guest experience advisory report for the Plesman Hotel in The Hague. So, first off, I wanted to start with a management summary, what we know so far, how the hotel is, and I have to say it's a fantastic hotel, and not just because one of our alum is the general manager, but the Plesman has an extremely strong foundation. They have high ratings and positive feedback on their staff, and their comfort and design atmosphere is really, really nice, especially their lobby, including the restaurant and the Albert Bar, are a really nice blend of Art Deco style and really emphasize nice storytelling. The gap that I wanted to focus on for this project is that the existing metrics that the Plesman currently collects they focus on satisfaction rather than loyalty, behavior, and community engagement. And my proposal is that I'd like to develop a loyalty and community-based customer experience insight system. My expected impact for this is stronger differentiation between better management decisions and deeper guest relationships, and that is a big deal. So, the De Plesman and its competitive context. It's positioned as a lifestyle hotel in a historic aviation building. As we know, it is in the former headquarters of KLM and showcases Albert de Plesman's former office as its presidential suite, which is a really nice bit of storytelling and showcases a very innovative individual for the Netherlands. The brand DNA is the connection, heritage, community, and meaningful hospitality. And its competitors in The Hague, the competitive set, are the Voco The Hague, the Collector Hotel, the Hilton, and the Leonardo. There are more, but I would say these are the ones that I focused on for my report. And there's a strategic opportunity for the De Plesman. They can become the hotel that connects guests through community experiences and local engagement. They are the only hotel with a Michelin key in The Hague and of only a few in the Netherlands. And therefore, that is already a strong differentiator, especially while comparing their hotel room value compared to things in Amsterdam. So, for my proposal and my community-focused customer experience insight system, my building blocks that I focused on were a loyalty KPI framework linking satisfaction with repeat behavior. Included in that also is our community engagement metrics, such as restaurant spend and event participation, and these are things that I will focus on in my dashboard later. And finally, as mentioned, the integrated CX dashboard, combining survey results, research insights, and behavioral information. So, customer experience through the academic lens, there is quite a bit of research done on this. And the recent research that I found is that traditional indicators like satisfaction scores and return intention questions are very popular. NPS or Net Promoter Score is often used but is debated for its accuracy in academic literature. So this is a common common tool that hotels use in order to identify guest satisfaction. However, it lacks a couple things, which we will get into. Online reviews provide behavioral feedback and authentic guest opinions, and there are quite a few through Booking.com, Google reviews. Even though the hotel is only 1 year old, there's still quite a few reviews. And research suggests using a portfolio of metrics rather than a single score. This tells a broader story of the guest feedback and guest insights and how their guest experience journey truly is. So the system does not yet measure community interaction or on-property engagement, and I think that is something that should definitely be focused on. So for the gaps in the current system, I first wanted to start with the strengths. There are very high satisfaction scores, as I mentioned, and there's plenty of positive guest feedback. Also, there's a strong operational monitoring of service quality. However, there is a focus on satisfaction instead of the behavior of the guests. And there's limited insights into guest loyalty or repeat intention drivers. Community interaction is also not tracked so far. So restaurant visits, events, they are not systematically tracked. And that is something that really interested me. And the implication of this is that the insights support operations, but not broader positioning. So, loyalty and customer experience. Hospitality experiences, they consist of both emotional satisfaction and social interaction. Guests now seem to seek meaningful experiences and connection with people and place. And I think that the Plesman has already started on a fantastic track with this. by having such a strong heritage in their building and by training their staff to really make the place and make people feel welcome in The Hague and showcase the local beauty of The Hague through their different art. That is already a very strong characteristic. Community-oriented hospitality can strengthen overall emotional attachment to the brand. As we know, the De Plesman is an independent, which has its drawbacks but also its strength. They can be known as an icon in the Netherlands. And loyalty, therefore, depends on both service quality and participation in the hotel environment, in the social environment. So, for example, this picture is from the Sunday roast that takes place every Sunday in the Soos restaurant. And that is a really nice way to get the community in your door and also to get your hotel guests to interact with members of the community. So I wanted to do a KPI revamp. The core outcome KPI is the likelihood to return because of community experience. That is something that I really wanted to focus on, as we got that from feedback from our meeting at the De Plesman, where we discussed the fact that it would really like to be seen as more of a community hub. And how do they get the people in the door that live just a few steps away? So loyalty dimensions of this would be experience satisfaction, so some of the existing survey items, the social connection with staff and other guests, the participation in hotel activities or events, and the spending behavior in restaurant and social spaces. Combining these dimensions allows management to understand what drives long-term guest loyalty. And this picture here is from another event, which is in the De Plesman, on the De Plesman's website, which is the What's On tab, which is a very, very nice feature, and I think one that can be used to increase the loyalty of the guests that are already staying. And this is from an art exhibition, which is also an incredibly nice community event, as it also solidifies the cultural relevance of the De Plesman and can serve as an educational experience for hotel guests and community members. So my dashboard components of the dashboard that I put together to track these metrics is the return likelihood score, the overall guest satisfaction, online review trends, and engagement metrics. So for the return likelihood score, this is simple, 1 through 5 from survey data. Customers may select this themselves. We can also track this through tracking repeat guests, and then we can combine that to create a score for the hotel, and that can be seen on a day-to-day basis or a weekly basis. Overall guest satisfaction, this would also be survey 1 through 5. This can be influenced by the reviews on OTAs and the numerical ones. And this would allow us to track our guest satisfaction by quarter and over a longer timeline. So the online review trends that already exist that we looked into for this project, Booking and Google reviews, we can look at if they're trending positively, trending negatively, look to see how people are rating us. And that is always a good tool to see the sentiment. Some engagement metrics that I wanted to focus on are restaurant spend per guest. I think this is incredibly important, and to see how that's trending, if we can do some upselling, and if we can do some extra restaurant spend per guest through these special events. Also, event participation rate. This is something I think is quite important to track. Even if it's a low percentage of guests in-house, we can also track then people from the community that come and join these events, and see if we can do anything to bolster those numbers a little bit to promote the events more and see what events the guests are truly interested in. Also, the Albert Bar and Lobby Lounge utilization during peak hours also speaks to the social interaction of the guests. Are they interested in mingling, in meeting people? And it overall just creates a nicer community environment at the De Plesman, which is important to improve. So another aspect, the two other aspects of my dashboard are the insight layer and the operational drivers that I identified. So from the insight layer, guest segments. I think segment tracking is very important. We can look at business guests, leisure guests, residents, and long stay. As we know, the De Plesman has several long stay apartments, and these guests have access to the gym, to the social spaces, to the restaurant. And I think it would be important to see how often they are being used by different groups of people, and see if we can do an adjustment to the marketing mix depending on how the percentages shake out. Also, the journey insights based on review, segment them into pre-stay, post-stay, and actual part of the inside of the stay. And then operational drivers, the peak outlet operation times. This helps with better staffing. It also can improve the marketing mix, as we said, and show areas of improvement. Also, the experience drivers, the staff interactions that the guests have, and the community programming that is created. There's obviously a lot of community programming already, but what else can be added? What are they interested in? And event attendance trends. So the highest participation versus lowest participation, as I mentioned, among the segments would be quite useful to track. So in order to kind of see how this would look like, I used AI to create a visual dashboard. This obviously is not influenced by real numbers of the Plesman, but these would be the metrics that they could track, which is kind of nice. So the top is the return likelihood, the overall guest satisfaction, and online review ratings. Then we have our engagement metrics, and then in the bottom we have our journey phase insights and our guest segments. So in order to see how this would come to life, I also used AI to create a little bit of a trailer video for this. And let's see, there we go.
From KLM headquarters to hospitality gold standard, the metrics prove it.
High return rate. So far that can be improved. Dashboard measures overall satisfaction based on surveys. Reviews from travel sites lead directly into dashboard restaurant revenue, per guest up 6% year-over-year. Event participation is crucial to help hotel guests connect with the community. Bar utilization is a key driver in social interaction and upselling. Segment tracking helps management to identify new guest targets. Journeys focus on location and design, then staff and comfort, and post-stay staff and cleanliness. This dashboard will help the hotel to increase loyalty and engagement among guests.
So I know that's not perfect, and it is simply an AI teaser of what could be, but I thought it was quite funny and quite interesting to see how this would actually be visualized, so I included it. But don't take me too seriously in this AI video. Of course, I will explain how this should be properly implemented.
From KLM head.
So the operational insights that we can gain from this dashboard, the restaurant capacity at peak times is what I mentioned. This helps with staffing, event attendance levels, guest participation in social spaces, and staff interaction scores. So this helps to track where are the guests really interacting with the staff, and how can we improve those interactions to make them more insightful for the guest's individual journey. These also allow the managers to identify which experiences actually strengthen the loyalty and community feeling that we're trying to give the guests. So when doing this study, I took some inspiration from other industries. One brand that obviously is huge and the biggest in the world in the coffee space, I thought would be an interesting thing to look at from a loyalty perspective, especially because they have such a strong loyalty app and they have so many loyal customers who will find a Starbucks anywhere that they go in the world. So in the Starbucks example that I searched and that I researched, loyalty is basically shown through the active Starbucks reward members. Their spend is the average transaction value. This is something that they track. Their engagement is the time that people actually spend in their stores and when they participate in their events, such as their sales and different pop-up events. And the sentiment is guest feedback analysis that they gain through surveys and through online reviews. And the relevance for the Plesman is for loyalty, you can track the return likelihood. For spend, you can track the restaurant revenue per guest. For engagement, the event participation and lounge utilization, and in the sentiment, you can track the review themes. Another example that I took when developing this project was Delta Airlines, as I am a loyalty member of Delta myself. They have a frequent flyer status tier, so silver, gold, platinum, and this could also be implemented in the Plesman. So you could have the Plesman Gold members who have who gather points by going to different events or through hotel stays or spa treatments, and then they get grouped into tiers, and then those tiers they get special discounts. They potentially get a free stay once in a while, and it overall just helps to increase the engagement of these loyal customers, and it helps people who are loyal get more for their money. On the spend side, they track revenue per passenger and ancillary value, and this again relates to restaurant revenue per guest. From the engagement side, lounge usage and loyalty program activity. So I'm not saying that the Plesman should build a special lounge for people who are platinum tier in the Plesman ecosystem, but they should maybe get some special treatment, as I mentioned, in the case of discounts, and also in maybe opportunities to socialize with other people who are loyal community members of the Plesman, and this could lead into a private membership club, which is something that I would like to develop for my end proposal for this class. On the behavior side, flight frequency per customer could be very interesting to track in the same way that you would track the average number of rooms per year or per month or per week, either way. So my focus on community involvement, obviously I would like to increase the weekly social events or network evenings, and increase the community dining experiences or themed restaurant nights. Something that I think is a gap that could be addressed is some local neighborhood partnerships. So for example, collaborating with different bakeries in The Hague, potentially different manufacturers of goods such as like wine, or oysters or seafood, any kind of commodities that could be then turned into trusted partnerships with the hotel. A great museum is also the Madurodam, which is right across the street from the Plesman, and events could be booked through the Plesman, where you take a group of guests and a group of people from the community, and maybe offer them a discounted rate to go and to do a tour, potentially with a tour guide from the Plesman or a representative. Also, as I mentioned, incentives for returning guests to participate in events. And then I developed an impact versus effort analysis to prioritize which things would truly strengthen guest engagement. Here is that impact effort matrix. So for community series events, this would include weekly networking events, cultural evenings, or community dinners, and I think that this would have a high expected impact, as it could increase guest engagement, it strengthens loyalty, and it improves the restaurant and bar revenue, which is quite important. The effort of this is sort of medium. You would have to have somebody who does the event planning and marketing coordination, but this should be a high priority, as I think this is easy to implement and is already along the lines of what the Plesman is doing, as they are already doing some community events. Some restaurant experience nights. These could be themed dinners, such as the Sunday roast on Sundays, and social dining tables. So long tables that increase the guests' interaction among each other, and potentially with some other valued members of the hotel, such as the management team on special occasions, and just overall helps to get everyone in the conversation. And this should also have a high impact, drives revenue spend, and creates some memorable experiences that people may book even if they're not staying at the hotel. This also would be medium effort, but should be a high priority. And then the resident long stay membership club. This is something that I'm very passionate about. I think that this could definitely be implemented. And the membership program for apartment residents and frequent guests with event access and F&B benefits. This could definitely drive up the spend in the spa, in events, and in the F&B department, as with a membership fee, such as a country club type of business model, then they are involved, they are part of the community, and it makes them more likely to enjoy different parts of the hotel more often, especially if they already live on property. And this is high expected impact. It encourages repeat visits, and it strengthens the guest relationships. It also strengthens the relationship with the long stay guests and the residents, who you may not have as many touch points with as with regular guests who check in and out every day. This is a high effort. It requires CRM integration and program management. Probably somebody would have to be put in place to oversee this, but I still think that it should be a high priority. Guest Insight Dashboard, as we're talking about right now. It's the implementation of the proposed customer experience dashboard. Obviously, high effort, but I already maybe did some of the work, and some of my other classmates may have also been able to contribute to some ideas that you could implement. And I think this should also be implemented, as it's always nice to have more information. Some local community partnerships, nearby attractions, beach activities. You could host a Plesman beach picnic that is where you provide the food and invite the guests and then shuttle them to the beach. This helps to experience The Hague and also to increase the guest relationship with the city that the hotel is in. For event participation incentives, loyalty points or discounts for attending events, I think this would be low effort. This would just simply need to be put into a system, and it encourages participation in social spaces. So I think that this should also be a priority. So very important, the GDPR and ethical data usage is incredibly crucial when collecting these customer experience insights. As guests value their privacy, and this needs to be in accordance with the general data protection regulations. The data has to be collected with consent, and there has to be transparency on how the data is actually used. From a management perspective, on compliance, these need to be anonymized so that there's no risk of the guest information getting out and being used for not good purposes. On a governance side, you should try and restrict the access to sensitive data. This is not something that you want out. Hotels collect a lot of sensitive data as people eat, sleep there, and therefore pay with credit cards and provide passport numbers, and this is very important to safeguard. From an employee perspective, which I think is very important, there should be a fair use of feedback. This should be more from a learning perspective and less from a surveillance perspective, so that they don't feel like their data is being used against them. And also, when training employees to handle this data, it needs to be in accordance with responsible data use policies, and needs to be extensive training. So some conclusions and some recommendations. I know I already gave a lot of recommendations throughout this, but the Plesman already provides strong guest experiences, as we know, and it has a high satisfaction rate. It's working. The hotel is great. We just need to get more people in the door. By expanding the insight system towards loyalty and community participation, you can strengthen the guest relationships, increase repeat visitation, improve restaurant and event revenue, and differentiate in the hotel market of The Hague, and in the Netherlands in general. And the recommended next step, implement some kind of pilot dashboard combining existing survey data with restaurant and event engagement metrics. More insights, data is power, and this will allow the hotel to be more efficient and to attract more people and get them to keep coming back. So thank you very much. These were my references that I used for this project, and I also used the pictures that were shared in order to develop my guest experience dashboard. Thank you very, very much. Again, my name is Lucas. This was my project for my advisory report. Thank you very much for listening.